another convention, we couldn't get all the people in on the Wednesday night.
Well, we found out if you went to that website of that convention, who we couldn't get any more rooms for, you could book a room under their convention name. But we didn't encourage that.
Oh, we didn't think of that.
No, it was brought up.
This was a society for the study of reproduction. They needed the bedrooms to do their lab work.
Seriously, what? That's what the convention was.
That's what the convention was, yeah.
Could someone share with us a little bit of how did you figure out who's doing what and kind of, I don't know if I want to use the word delegating, but kind of like figuring out who does what and so forth?
I think I did that for the most part. I tried to read people who are, for example, Krista and Ingmar together working as a team. Both are very meticulous and very detail-oriented, and that's exactly the sort of people, and very, very driven as well. Those are exactly the qualities you want somebody who's going to organize Rafabidu, which has so many different agendas going at the same time. You really need somebody to follow through on everything and really not cracks can't develop, so you need. And then there's other people, such as Heva, my wife, who's very artistic, and she was able to create the banners, do all the artistry work and everything. Different personalities for different jobs depending on what the job requirements were.
So say Kalle picked the event coordinators for those, and then the event coordinators picked their own staff, so there's the next level. So then I had a whole bunch of people, and then maybe even those people had people who helped them do whatever other facet of that event that it was. Trina had a Trobigond of people helping with the running of Guadalupe. Krista and Ingmar. In the end, how many people did you have doing things at Rafabidu?
It was funny, I was just thinking about that when I was upstairs. I'm like, and
Lost count.
if you take out the actual performers, because they did their performance, but as far as volunteers
Running
running
things for you.
that day, yeah, 25 to 35.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Truly, because Ingmar and I wanted to create Rafabidu as a event that there was something for everybody. So we had children's events. They had the lake out there with the pedal boat, the maze race, and then the Laura Begos and the Kayakas performance, and just
The
enough-
volleyball,
the
children's-
volleyball, yeah, all the different events. And so we had, we got ideas. Who's interested in doing, a pedal boat race? I was thinking on that. I wanted just really want to pedal boat race, and the maze that was out there. But 25 to 35 additional people that we had approached. Then to go to that level, maybe they got some volunteers. So if you guys need somebody, go ahead and, somebody that might be able to help you with the arts and crafts and that kind of thing. So it was very multi-layered.
We used a matrix management mechanism where we had event organizers, one or two in your case, for an event. But then we had service providers who provided, for example, decorations or sound and light equipment was necessary, tickets sold in the door, security, whatnot. These are individuals who provide ticket sales for each event. So every event organizer already had their committee built in because there's one person designated for sound and light, one for security, one for ticket sales, one for decorations, one for all the things that are common in every event. So wherever the rows and the columns intersected, that's where service needs to be provided.
Another question. So sorry. Actually, go ahead, talk while I.
Want to explain the work that you did on the spreadsheet and tracking our expenses and the budget? That was a really crucial topic.
Yeah, after the board established the budget for each event, trying to project kind of what the attendance might be and the prices. Well, that was a lot of discussion on what the prices for each event should be, and we can't unfortunately share with you the final results right now, but I'll be happy to send that to you on the spreadsheet. But the spreadsheet that we developed was each event had a separate sheet for the budget and attendance, and then I would track, as Kalle said, every week the ticket sales came about. I'd put that in and then try to graph so we could project some kind of or extrapolate what happened. That was especially critical for the transportation side. If we had an event at an outside venue.
Did you do any sort of price elasticity? So obviously the tier get discount prices before, and then you went up. Did you do anything in the
price levels, and of course, early on, the discussion was what price to set it, and we looked at the costs that we would face with like the Baile or something, the actual costs from the hotel, and then we also compared it with historical prices from Seattle and previous ones, just to see what their attendance was and see if it.
Did you allocate a fixed cost then for all the tickets and the matrix operations, that you had a fixed cost for each event? Did you allocate that across the events, or you kept that as a separate?
No, we had, well, like printing the cost for printing music and music copyright, that was one of the surprise costs that we didn't anticipate.
I heard it was a copyright. Can you explain more about what happened with that?
Mikey Bogart can probably do a better job of the music copyright issue.
Yeah, it's a little complicated. I really can't explain it, but there's two issues. One is the copyright issue having to do with the Hiri Loya. And if the Hiri Loya has been dead more than 75 years, copyrights aren't against it. So, all right. But we're using a lot of modern music, and so young people are still alive. So that's one. The other is the performance issues. And there's a thing called the Eesti Hiri Loya Delete. An organization, you go through them, and they like to get some percentage of the take for a performance. So we had 80 pages, I don't remember how many songs. What we did is I got in contact with, can't remember her name now, but the Tansupidu is Access, okay? So there's Tansupidu. I contacted those people and there's a woman there I got contacted, gave her a list of the songs and said, where do I go to get in touch with these Hiri Loya? So that took some doing. So I got in touch with all of them, and some of them haven't worked with a publisher, some of them worked individually.
So there's no central agent, so it's individual. Wow. Oh, God.
That makes you want to stop right there. It's like,
But we decided to do it because we discussed this. First of all, it's the right thing to do, and it's what's it always Eesti Hiri Loya. And there's very few ways we can, directly support Estonian culture, so that was why we did it. It's a little more complicated than maybe I've made it out to be, but the pricing came out to be, I went through SP Musica, where there were 4 Hiri Loya under their publisher, and we wound up paying $1.75 a page per loan for those guys. So in our case, for 100 books, it was $175 per loan. We actually made more books than that. We only used that many. So that's what we paid for. And you have to make clear to them that you're not going to sell these things. It's all nonprofit. Okay. And so the other difficulty was getting money to them. We're still working on that because it costs money to do interbank transfers. So right now we've got a couple of loose ends, and I think we're going to go with Western Union. So that's something.
are these huge amounts? Because otherwise, the PayPal might be an easy. If it's under $500 per whoever, it's cheaper to do PayPal. If it's over, then some other source.
Well, that's something I didn't know about. I didn't know if it worked in Estonia. And Birgit Drips wrote me and said, "Can you use this thing?" And I've never heard of it. Okay, I think it's a PayPal in Europe.
Yeah.
Okay. So we ran into problems with that and getting the money transferred. And Eric's the treasurer. Is Eric here?
No, he's not.
Ma ei tea, Erik tegi mingi ülekande, ma ei tea, kuidas ta seda tegi.
I don't remember.
Kalev ei ole ka siin.
Oli see kõik kokku tuhandetes või sajades tuhandes?
Well, as I said,
Yeah.
SP Music kind of set the price for us. And so the other Hiri Loya wrote me back, and we discussed this, and they said, "What's a fair price?" I've never done this with Americans. So, that's the price we settled on with the publisher, the first publisher, and then I made that proposal to others, and they said it was fine. So it worked out it's just under $2,000 for 100 books.
But some of the royalties were also based on attendance or something like that?
That's a completely separate issue.
Yeah.
And then there's an attendance fee too, which we decided we didn't pursue that. But we decided we decided to do that. And so that's the number we came up with, and that's the market. There is no market for it per se. market price, so, but $1.75 per page. That's a good number to keep in mind.
That's huge. Yeah.
Was there anything else cost-wise too that was a surprise? So that's a big surprise. number
Right.
one. Were there other surprises that came on cost-wise, hotel-wise, or anything else?
Well, we're pretty lucky here in Portland that we have a lot of people who have a lot of sound equipment and musical equipment. So a lot of that we didn't have to pay for, but say something like Huisa Doliak was professional video and professional, a sound system in there, and that runs you a few $1,000s. But we're lucky that we didn't have to pay for a lot. Everything in Guadalupe, pretty much, we rented a sound system for Gihno Boisid, but a lot of it we saved a lot of money just because a lot of us have a lot of stuff. So maybe bear that in mind when you're setting your music stuff on what you can borrow versus what you have to rent and who's going to run it.
Another surprise with the songbook, the original budget I saw was $600, and we paid,
It was $8 per book
it
or
was like
something
$8
like that?
per book, and it was so like, it was like $2,400 or something like, it was a lot. We
Just
budgeted
to print-
$600
To print the books.
to print the books, actually taking the print. And I did all the work, I got the music from the choir directors, okay, the hard copies. And it took me probably 40 or 50 hours of computer work to scan them in, clean them up. Some of the music was bad, so you had to actually go into graphic software and do that kind of stuff to make them legible. Because the music has to
And
be big.
consistent.
Right? And so you need to find somebody to do that, because you're not going to find clean music. But I would say, the first thing you want to do is get in touch with like SP Music or a publisher, because they said they would, at the end of this, they offered to publish this stuff for us too. We didn't pursue that because we were so far down the road, we were already committed to doing with our software that we had just locally on what I had on my computer. But the printing itself was, I don't remember, it was $2,700. Well, $300 was about $2,400 for the books.
But you have to remember, we had 4 events that had choral in it.
Yeah, that's it.
Which-
So the music was all in one place.
So it's a huge book to print. And usually Estibaba don't have places where choirs sing in 4 different events. So, we add a lot of stuff. The songbook was huge, and it took special, Matya to do the spiral bound. I mean, there's a lot of factors that went into why that cost was so high, because there was so many songs in these events.
Did you investigate just doing that all electronically? Is this one of the questions is because the expense and the cost that
Right.
are on it and looking at going far more electronic versus having everything in terms of just electronic and in terms of email printing is not as elegant. I'm just wondering whether that was ever questioned or came under consideration or it was always saying that we're going to do a book because that's what we do. Just a question.
I'm not sure what you're.
Oh, it's electronic, so now we're not printing the books, having it all electronically so people could download or whatever is required.
And then they print it themselves.
And they print it themselves and they bring it.
You'd have
Well,
a
there's-
copyright issue.
Was there a big copyright issue there?
Yeah, that was a big problem, because the final PDF, we made sure we didn't distribute that out for just
Got
that
it.
reason.
So it is a copyright issue there. Okay, that's good.
We decided to keep everything above board, not do anything illegally, copy illegally. Even when housing people into these rooms, we could have jam-packed, and they said they don't have any bedroom police in the hotel counting how many bodies sleep in a room, but we agreed from the beginning that we're not going to go past hotel policy and just keep 5 people in a room, 1 roll away, not fill it up so that there's 10 people in a room.
Another small thing, but it can be expanded on to be a warning, is that when we had the choirs practicing in all sorts of different venues and for months in advance, it wasn't about till 3 weeks ago or so that we discovered that we needed to pay the accompanist.
Oh, yeah. Whoops.
And so it's like, make sure you know who's working to make this stuff possible.
Who's a volunteer?
And who's a volunteer, and this guy is spending a lot of time practicing the music, and accompanist gets somewhere around $50 a service at least. And the same thing with the instrumentalists. There were some surprises there, not big ones, but be aware that that kind of thing enters into it. If you're hiring pros to do things, make sure you get your cost figured out.
So I think, like you're saying, other costs that were kind of hidden, just make sure
that came up for us, I think it came up early on, but then it came in light when we signed the final contract, was any tips or any gratuity. We had a bus service, and at the end it was, they didn't tack on. Well, they said it suggested 10% or 15% gratuity. Well, we didn't put that into the cost of our tickets, so that was above and beyond. So make sure whatever service you have that you at least consider that, do they get a gratuity, do they get anything above and beyond what's on, you know, the transaction, or are they putting money in to the bill that you're giving you? Because yeah, it didn't come up, and then it's like, oh, we got to cover that, and so it's like, do we have enough, and where's that going to come from?
Bigger surprise on your event, though, if you remember, was the change in ownership of the.
How many times?
And we went through 4 people for our park. We had the original owner, and then
He kind
they
of
bought
vanished.
it, and then they had a rental company doing that part, and then managing the park. She got overwhelmed, so they hired somebody to do it, and then a week and a half before our event, she left, and we got a new person to come in. So we had to go through everything that we'd come upon to make sure that they understood what the 3 other people agreed upon with us. So they weren't surprised, or they're not going to come and say, well, you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have that. Unfortunately, we had everything in our contract, and we actually added a addendum to the original contract saying that, you know, this is what we had. And one of the issues was the original owner, we gave him a down payment. Well, when he left, he took the money, and the new owners never got it. So we had to specify that money was part of our deal regardless. You didn't get it, but that was our agreement.
But at least
with
you
the
had
park.
the paper trail to show that.
Otherwise, that would have been an additional deposit or money that we would have had to come up with. So.
The other thing is, again, with an outside venue like that, there was an issue with liquor licenses.
Yeah, and that was part of the previous owner who was unable to keep the park up. And this has become a big legal thing with the new owners too, that they didn't have alcohol license. And so Ingmar and I tried to find out how we were going to get beer and wine on site. One of the latest gal right after that goes, do you think you can have your picnic without beer and wine? I said, no, that's not an option. So trying to figure out for the state of Washington what their liquor laws are, trying to get that in order. But then when they hired the new gal, they had hired a catering company, so we were able to step back and not have to deal with that portion of it. You know, and you just never know, because we booked that park a year and a half previously. So we had no idea. As a matter of fact, I'm sure the gentleman knew that he was in trouble, but he didn't tell us.
On the same line, the club here, Oregon liquor laws don't allow kids in a place that serves liquor. To get around that, this became a private party. And so those sorts of rules have to be looked at.
Right.
Well, that's why we had the wristbands and the
right.
pins and everything, and that's how they were able to get in, and we were able to get around it. So we had to have someone at the door whenever there was alcohol being served to make sure that, you know, random people didn't get in and we didn't get in legal trouble.
Great. As Clive joined here, we're really trying to go through the hidden costs that we had no idea of. So we'd love to get all of this stuff, because these are the surprises that.
Let's take this issue a little bit further. The issue here at Golden Levy, we changed. Everybody who's been to previous Estonian festivals knows there's a Salakuts, and that's a place where the adults hang out, and then teenagers and kids don't really have a thing to do. You know, they're staying up quite late anyway, so where they hang out at the lobby. So Trina, explain that situation, how we were, like, taking off what Mark said, that this was an all-age thing.
Yeah.
And how did that work out?
It was from my understanding, I didn't really talk to the hotel much about it, so I don't really know exactly the legal whatnots that happened. But we wanted to have a place where we could have, 2-year-olds up to 200-year-olds. And have everybody be together. Because, on my own example, 2 years ago in Seattle, I was 20. I snuck into the bar. I mean, there were 3 or 4 of us, all underage. We snuck in because we wanted to spend time there. So we wanted to find a way so people wouldn't have to do that anymore. So you'd all be able to, it's a LEP is like a family event, and you want to continue to stay together while still being able to, dance and drink and do all that.
like you said the other day, it's kind of like a wedding, right?
Right, yeah, so we had to set it up kind of like as a private party, as a wedding, kind of, to be allowed to let everybody in and still have alcohol. And just as long as we had somebody manning the door during booze hours, then we were able to do that.
And in our website, we posted out on our website that if you pay your registration, that gives you unlimited access into Club Levy, and we said that pretty strongly on the website. And what we discovered when ticket orders started coming in, almost every order had registration on there. Nobody, in previous festivals, that's a volunteer thing if you want to register or not, and wouldn't have that strong of a thing. I would say registry, or paying your registration, was probably the top event.
Because you actually got something tangible for it.
But the other issue was that because of this, some people were offended with the idea that they couldn't bring their neighbors in after a concert without having having to have them registered.
We had issues at the door with that. After different concerts in Huisa Doliak and Rafapidu, people came back here who were just there, friends of whoever was in it, and they wanted to get in, but you can't get in without registering. So we had a lot of issues with that, even at the door during the festival.
Was there a solution to it, or what do you suggest from your experience?
We had at the door registration.
So you pay your $20 registration, you get your band or your pin.
And you're officially part of the group, and you can get in for the rest of the
But there
festival.
was so that was the difference. You registered. You didn't have a cover charge.
Right.
Cover charge is what would kill us with the liquor.
So we wouldn't sell a single night entry to the Club Levy. It'd have to be a registration for the entire event.
Okay.
Another issue I'd like to cover is the changing of the traditional song and dance festival into what you saw with Huisa Doliak. Do you want to explain that?
In
precision?
25 words or less.
Have fun. No, the success of Huisa Doliak was because there were so many people involved, and so many people got to put their input, which meant so many people had an ownership in it, and that's what made it a complete success. Every visiting West Coast group in Toronto and the groups from Estonia all got to have a say in how it was. And it is actually something that Rita Mandla was saying that the folk dance groups this is 25 words right there, are starting to do their rather than doing a dance program, dance, they pick a theme. So, so they pick their dances based on a theme. So, Huisa Doliak was the theme, and it was the first time we'd done, say, a musical of it. It is, and there was a lot of people involved in the committee, but there was a lot of it was off-site, and because they had a lot of ownership, I just had a really loose structure, a story around it.
How early did you guys have to figure out the dances and so forth, and who and how did you let them know that they could come and dance? And because I believe it wasn't only Doliak, there were some others also who were dancing and performing.
Oh, every visiting troupe, every
Right.
troupe got a solo, and and they probably found out, in the fall, so 10 months ago.
10 months ago.
The script was pretty much set, and they knew that they got to pick a solo, didn't care what it was, they had a certain time, and once I got those back, then I knew where, based on what they were going to do, where it would be appropriate in that musical. The story of the Huisa Doliak, the idea started 2 years ago, and that's what Lonnie and Gatti, based on what songs they wanted to bring into, and that's what Matu was talking about, this modern music, that's what started the whole story, because it costs so much more to get that music, and we have a fabulous choir base here in Portland that can do that kind of music. I mean, we couldn't have done it without them, and that's what kind of solidified how we're going to do it, because we knew we had a super strong choir, we knew we had phenomenal dancers, and it was just time to do something different. It was time to do something really different. We had fantastic kids.
Can I make a comment about that?
Fantastic kids?
No, mine, of course. The Huisa Doliak should, I think, have been in a place where they're on a stage and you've got people who can see the dancing, because if you weren't in the front row, all you could see was heads and shoulders. And for me to get pictures, I had to go crawling around on the floor. But if you have a stage and then a sloping audience area, it would be much better.
It was discussed in several meetings, and we decided to not go off-site because we already had 3 major events off-site. So you're paying 3 major transportation costs, you're paying off-site. And we didn't want to go with another event off-site when we already had the hotel, and like Doma said, we already had all these free rooms available to it. So yeah, it was the worst venue for this event. But at the same time, I didn't care because the whole idea of Huisa Dulyak, that musical happened to be that it were one little village coming together, so it was almost like a beer garden. So I really didn't care. When I choreographed, like, you know, the dancers and stuff coming on, I didn't bother doing intricate moves or anything because, like you said, you didn't see any of it. All you saw were a bunch of butts going past you, basically. So,
Yeah.
so
I thought the great
it wasn't for that venue. It wasn't worth it. Yeah, if we were going to be in an auditorium, then it would have been completely different because then you want to do all these cool patterns and things. But
Ideally, what you want to do, if you had some way to do it, would be to have, the easiest thing we can visualize is a basketball court
a gymnasium.
with bleachers. So then the audience is up and the dancers are down and you can see what's going on. But, so if we could have raised the audience, we actually talked about
We did.
figuring out how to put in raised audience seating, but it's too expensive.
Extra cost, right?
There's this effect of closeness too, that the dancers touch and interact with.
It was very much theater in the round.
I
was
sat
what we
in
wanted to
somebody's
do.
lap once.
I think the other thing that might have improved it, the one thing we did go, I think, in the right direction was the video screen. Had there been more video screens than one, because of the orientation of the hall, it would have been added considerably to it, but that didn't, again, with the expense, I guess it was decided not to do that.
Well, and as actually it was more, the choir grew. It grew from where we were thinking maybe it was going to be 70 people. It ended up being 168 people. So we had to you know, shift from doing, you know, having audience here and here and having 2 video screens and the dancers in the middle. No, we have to have a place where that humongous choir is planted, and that's what shifted everything there. So,
But
yeah, not the best
But
venue.
again, to add more, I mean, it could have added more screens in other parts of the room, possibly, had we had the budget to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
The sound system was good in one way in that it brought the sound to the people at the far end of the room. Be careful of mic placement. We found out that some people heard mostly altos. You know, so the other thing, as far as planning goes, you also should know, in addition to the 2-year development process, the Huisa thing.
That was
That's
great.
the 2-minute development.
20 minutes before showtime, I get a call and she tells me, this is what you gotta do.
It was great.
And I think that word is changed.
That really brought the audience into it.
Yeah.
That was really a
That
good
worked,
idea.
that was very good.
Yeah.
Let me add another couple of ideas. One is that you're almost certainly going to be required to purchase insurance. You want to be very careful that you understand what your liability is with regard to alcohol. The hotel will require insurance, but what does it mean that you are or you are not covered for alcohol liability? The other thought is that we had our own security staff. You may not have known it, but we had a fellow that was specifically charged with keeping an eye on things. He had a direct contact with hotel security. You want to be sure that you have somebody designated in this role, especially in San Francisco, where I think the big threat would be somebody coming in from the outside and starting to hit on the girls. This has happened. You want to be sure what police power your person has or persons have. They cannot really just go and accost people. So look into that. I don't know what the answer is, but I know what the question is.
Does the security get to be a volunteer who is kind of like a security, or like legally a person whose job is to be security?
No, we had a volunteer,
Okay.
big husky guy. You want a big husky guy. We had a guy some years ago who actually bloodied a nose, he wound up the stand-in for Arnold Schwarzenegger in Hollywood, in the movie studios. This was a big guy. You'd like to have several of these folks that are sort of charged with, they kind of keep an eye on things. They're trying to defuse situations before they get out of hand.
I remember that in San Francisco because we had 2 incidents unbeknownst also that was drinking related at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. One breaking down a hotel door, I can remember once, and we had an issue where we had to deal with, I personally was dealing with the security. So the idea of having, I think one thing, especially the type of crowd and the venue that's going to be in San Francisco is something we have to consider.
Yeah, that's great.
Liability insurance is, I never followed through on it, but somebody mentioned that you personally and on the board can add some rider to your homeowner's insurance to cover you personally for any lawsuits that might be brought as a part of the event. I mean, in addition to the general insurance policy, again, individuals might want to think about that.
It's very cheap. I carried $1 million rider for very little money.
No, I have one right now, so right, business-wise, I think that's a very good offer.
One thing that's developed in Portland over all the years is our friendship with the local choirs, American choirs, as you saw performing with our groups. Mark, could you maybe, now, we know this goes back for years, but are there any guiding words that you could inject into this meeting? How could the future organizers bring in outside choirs to add to the groups that we have now?
If I can remember this after I've said 3 things, the 3 different aspects. One is there should be a coordinator that is sort of charged with keeping track of who's coming and who the contact people are, and making sure that those contact people know where they're expected to be. I mean, we've got schedules, but this is a small thing. Kayakas was sitting at the front door before the Rafapidu, and we were loading buses out of the banquet door, and we loaded up 2 buses that took off when they were full, and then the other 2 buses, we had to do what we said, wait till 1 o'clock before the last bus left so that everybody got, well, because Kayakas was sitting up here waiting to load, and nobody was responsible to make sure they knew they should be on the first bus. They were on the last bus. And kind of, at any rate, the idea came up that there should be somebody who knows what each one of the performing groups is supposed to be doing and sort of feeds the information to them. The other side of things is soliciting performers from Estonia or anywhere. The Dansupidu and Laulupidu accept videos, sort of auditions for performing and being part of it. And we didn't do that. We sort of had people who were approached by people in Estonia, and then other of our people would look at what they had done and decide whether or not they should come. But there was no formal submit a proposal, have a group of people try to say, okay, these 3 are worth looking at, and then go back. And I think we're getting to the point now where we should do that, because the festival is getting big enough or well-known enough that people want to come here, and so they're kind of duking it out over there.
Oh, well, how many groups wanted to come?
Yeah, see, I don't know that information, but the selection process was sort of haphazard, and I think we need to.
Different level they gave up. I was the bad guy. And
Yeah.
write several nasty,
Yeah.
apologizing letters that we really can't accept more.
But there were several groups that really wanted to come.
Yeah. So I very much agree that the selection process, at least for yourself or for the committee, has to be somewhat established or clarified. What is the criteria? How do we select? How do we give the opportunity to one group and not to the other group? Because obviously there are limits, even if you don't host this as well as we can or we do here, shorter time or travel somewhat limited or something, or they travel on their own or whatever. But I think it has to be somewhat clear, because then I had a difficult time of making up our criteria as I wrote these letters. You know, sorry, we can't accept because we don't. Just our standards. We were setting our standards pretty high. That we wanted to take care of them 2 weeks after the event, so that they stay in homes, they are fed, they are taken care of in a hotel, and there was just no way. The choir said, sure, we are very self-sustained, we can do, but they still expected homestays, travels, and various other things.
One other thing is Portland is the Estonian cultural capital of the West Coast. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's beautiful. You have to be proud, and that doesn't come overnight. It's obviously in terms of your commitment here for all the years, and it has emerged. And also by talent-wise, and speaking to people in Toronto, it's nowhere in North America has the equal in terms of the cultural aspect. So for us in the Bay Area, which you have ingrown here, in terms of you going outside culturally, trying to get that, one of the biggest questions we have is saying, would it be practical and how we can showcase our West Coast Portland talent, because you really are. I mean, the beauty of here is that your wealth and the culture is so high, and you're able to go outside. You don't recognize what a high level you have already, and likewise to be able for us in San Francisco to be able to showcase that. It's something I'm not speaking who is ever going to charge. I'd rather be showcasing our West Coast and Portland to the world versus other people from ASD, because that's, you really think about it. And being in Toronto so often and seeing the performances, you're so close to the forest and trees. Your level is just by far in North America the top level. So one of the opportunities, of course, we're going to look at Ingrid is going to make these decisions of the committee, but of course we'll look at Estonian talent. But looking at the talent you have here, see, we don't have to go 3,000 miles. You have that. So we're honored of, and that type of participation moving forward, because again, we're not good. Every city can do its best. There's no way, and Ingrid was talking about this, there's no way we're going to be able culturally top such a program and the type of talent you have. But one thing that what San Francisco will allow is to be able to showcase, and why not showcase to the world the best talent we have in North America, and it's here.
And that's what we discussed, that, sure, the ESTO thing is, people talk about left and right, but the point is, they get to come and see what you guys, let's say, if you're willing to come, you can perform at LEP. So moving forward, what if, so what that ESTO doesn't continue, but now that people are going to go back, and they're like, oh my God, you should see what LEP is. And now for the future, now the world does know about it. And every 2 years, they're like, oh, I haven't been in America yet. I want to go to these LEP days. Now they're in LA. Now they're in Portland. Now they're there. So in some ways, it's a really good way to show to the world what is happening on the West Coast. And we have the opportunity to show this for the younger generation. So it's not like we're going to try to compete with you, but like Mighty said, if you guys are willing to, help us and come and show what you guys do, this is a way to show to the rest of the world. You want more of this? We do it every 2 years. Just come and choose the city.
And that's the wealth when you just don't recognize you're so close. There's nothing what you guys can do. There's nothing I can do in Toronto or Baltimore or New York. And I can say, having lived there and working there on a constant basis, this is the showcase, which is beautiful, and that's something we need to highlight for the 60th anniversary, where we will go and get talent, but the talent is here.
I got to get to my third thing. The people that do come have accepted a great lead-in, need to be taken care of.
Sure.
That's your third one?
That's my third one. No, I've been involved a couple of times in the various festivals, and I won't name any of them, where I was with a traveling group that came through, participated, and then moved on. And there was a disconnect between the group that was performing and the overall event. As a traveling through member, I didn't feel connected. We made the performance was over, okay, here's some sandwiches. And that was sort of it, when there was a hotel room. But there was no inclusiveness of, that performance group was not pulled into the overall swirl.
Could you tell us how you could do it? So
Well, the Kayak Us was included in the banquet, weren't they?
In the ball last night?
The ball, right.
And no, yeah.
Yeah. And so, there was, the party became everybody. And
They didn't feel left out.
the times, the other years that this traveling company thing happened, we could go to things if they were free, but if it cost money, we weren't welcome.
No,
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so that was actually a board decision too.
Sure, I
That
don't-
Gifu
yeah.
Boise and Kayakas got to attend every event for free, right?
Yeah, now
Yeah.
they stay here for another week and a half, and many of us are taking vacation time to drive them around or to homestay them. So the moment they landed in America, they have zero expenses with anything until they get back in the plane and leave.
But
They do
even
have several
but
performances, though,
Even
public
short of
performances.
short of the touring, in addition to the free attendance at the events, because, that was the other thing, the hotel gave us, for every 50 room nights, we got one free room night, and we used those to house the invited guests. And I think that was the other thing to delineate, is that's why we had to limit the invited guests from ASD, because we couldn't afford to give that kind of those kinds of perks to everybody, and that's why we had to turn down the other ones, in addition to the idea of not having spots on the agenda to allow everybody to perform. You have to just be hard-nosed and turn them down.
And it was an artistic question a little bit too, because we pretty much saw that there's so much interest in the choral community here, and Lonnie and Mark and you started working on it. That was pretty obvious that we don't really need choirs. So you have to look at the balance of the program too.
Absolutely.
What you need, and the young dancers with their energy are very good choice.
No, I mean, I think those are.
Yeah.
I apologize, just because of the flag I wanted to bring on. I thought it was brilliant with the flag and the emblems.
it was unbelievable.
It has to be one of the biggest positive new additions to ASD Pava, bar none.
Yeah.
Bar
And
none. And Ingrid was speaking about wanting to maintain that, or saying we'd be able to keep that as a tradition. And obviously the flags have great value here, and we're not asking to, wherever the flags home are, they should be here in terms of, absolutely. So it's great. However, I just want you to know that Vladek Bartek is willing to at least take the bases and poles back if you don't want to hold on to it. And we'll hold on next week. So that is, whatever you do with the flags, because I think in terms of incorporating that part into the ceremony going forward is brilliant. And
Yes.
speaking for Ingrid, that's probably one element in terms of opening ceremony, stuff like that, we'll want to definitely maintain. Just
Yeah.
bring that out.
This is like,
We're 5 minutes away from one, so if there's any
Yes.
final questions before we close.
I have a question, thank you. What I was trying to ask earlier is, when you were trying to looking out, 2 years, these are all the things that need to take place before the event happens. How did you know that, okay, this we need to do this month, then 6 months from now, how did you know the order of the importance?
The order was determined by staying one step ahead of when it was due. We didn't wait until the closing. We jumped the gun on whatever we could just to be ahead of the game, and we found out that worked all the way till the beginning of the festival. We were never fighting deadlines that were chasing us, but we were proactive ahead with everything. So it's kind of worked itself out.
And I think one thing that helped us, which I think was nice, is if you do the online ordering of tickets, you know instantly how you have to plan your event. Because if you wait for mail, or and that's one reason we had the price increase a month before, because a lot of the contracts you had 10 to 15 days out, you had to sign. But if people are waiting till the last minute, do they come, do they not? But if they see there's an increase in cost, they'll make their plans earlier. So you can at least approach your company or whoever you're doing, say, I can give you 70%, 80% in confidence that I'll have this many people coming, and then you can guess how many extra may show up in the last month. Because I think in the last week, or actually even once the festival started, we had an increase in attendance that we had no idea, we couldn't have even planned for.
What was the percentage in terms of percent of ticket sales in a week before, approximately, or in terms of hotel registration? Did you have 80% or 90%, or how much was in the last 7 days?
We were expecting it was flatline. Ticket sales peaked only right when the discount tickets went up, And it just stayed. I mean, you were tracking it as well. We kept you posted. So
We have
you got that graph, but it was just the hotel rooms from when they first went online were flatline growth, little peaks, bumps, and ticket sales were pretty flatline as well.
Well,
There's a little bit of an
you'll be able to see that for yourself when we get the graphs for you.
Because I asked that question because in my days, we had a huge surge. We had 20% to 25% the last
Well, yeah,
7, 8
I think there's a little misconception. There was a fairly good spike just before the deadline. Then there were two things happened. The transportation flatlined, but there were the ticket sales for the events per se still went up, and I didn't get it at the very last minute, but just the day before, again, they were curving up.
But that means electronic tickets actually helps flatten that versus in the past where we had this huge surge the last 7 days of 25% coming in the door. So
Well,
that means
no,
electronic.
it could have still been 15 to 20%.
Still in the end, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that could be something to plan.
Following on Whitey's point, by all means keep in contact with the American choir conductors, because the American kids would love to come to your event in San Francisco. They want to come and sing. So stay in touch with Lonnie, stay in touch with the other directors. You'll be amazed. And they'll pay their own way.
Let me add something to that real quick. One mistake that we did make, I had planned to get the books out, the song books out, because I got the music sometime in September, October. I planned to get all the stuff done and printed and mailed on January 1st. That didn't happen. Doesn't make any difference why. It didn't even out till March. That's too late. Because there's some people that said, we're not coming, we can't. And the problem was, usually we just send songbooks out and they're all old songs. Half of the stuff we sang this time was new. They didn't have time to learn it.
Same applies for dances. I think that has to be taken into account. If you have the main choreographies or dances that you expect the groups to know, I think you have to make sure that they get at latest Christmas time, hopefully earlier.
Well, we had them in the fall, and
But then I'm just commenting.
so I cheated too, because most of the mass dances that all the cities did together were dances that were done in Dansupido in 2009, and so the teaching videos were still on YouTube. All I had to do was send every director the Dansu Samud and the YouTube video. That's how they taught themselves.
Fantastic.
So,
That's a great idea.
Kids use that too.
oh yeah. Well, Kalev, he put things on YouTube that then the kids were able to practice that song or practice that dance.
That's
We're
great.
right at 1 o'clock now. Is there one final question, then we'll close?
Actually, I have one question, if you may. Did you guys receive any financial help from Estonian government, like Minister of Culture or?
We applied for the Rahvuskaaslased Foundation, and we received 1,000 euros, I think. It was $1,400. We asked much more, but basically the way we presented this as a help for hosting our Estonian visitors. It's really the rules. There were some rules that you had to apply or go by, and I think that we decided that was the best, because we had kind of indirect cost of covering the events where we sent them, and transportation, that was mostly. So there is, but it's a very little help. The other thing that I don't know whether you maybe talked already about the royalty cost. Consider that into your budget too. It's not trivial.
We talked about that.
And as you noticed, Carla says 1 o'clock, as our meeting's 7 to 9, we're done.
We're done. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. You have no idea how much we appreciate this.